Yeah.
Right. So this is actually my first time doing this module, and it didn't work perfectly, unfortunately, but I think it worked pretty
It's a good
well.
idea to maybe test your modules before you go.
It's a very good idea.
And read your module instructions thoroughly, because they have some cool information. Like for this one, for instance, you could have added a little bit more sugar, and it would have let the drops settle on the top.
So, did anyone notice anything strange or weird happening with their drops? Anyone?
Oh, that's cool.
What's cool?
It's like psychedelic.
Christine.
Okay.
So, everybody's look like water.
No, this one
That would be a good
takes a
idea.
lot longer.
Because you know how we want
Yeah.
to have them like
So,
during the meetings? Should we tell
it's
them?
C? Yeah. So it should.
They know what,
C is sugar.
what they can do. They can
Anyone have B?
They can bring moms to next meeting. They can test it.
No one have B. Do we leave both our B's? We'll leave both our B's on the table when we pass it out. So no one actually had.
Okay, do the drop. Do it.
All right.
Let me see it.
Straight down.
Yeah.
Saltwater, it actually probably again didn't have
Use it.
different color.
Yeah.
Can someone pass me a darker color?
There's a blue.
Right now.
What happened?
So
Ooh, that's
it is very, very slow to fall. And if you have more salt, it actually rises back up to the top. So this experiment kind of, like some of the scientific stuff you can talk about in this experiment are diffusion, which is sort of the movement of the dye in the water and how it spreads in the water. You can talk about density, so if a solution is dense, like if you add a lot of salt, the solution will become really dense, and then the dye, instead of sinking to the bottom, will rise back up to the top. Same thing works for sugar. And you can talk about molecular interactions a little bit. If you're,
If applicable.
it depends on the sort of level of your class. Like you can talk about how stuff dissolves, and you can talk about kind of why the dye diffuses faster in the bubbly water. So just a lot of interesting things to talk about depending on the depth of your class. And in this experiment, I would probably talk about them after we're done. So as far as, you know, the stuff that this experiment teaches, does anyone have any ideas? And I don't mean just scientific terms. I mean more like in terms of the scientific method and just kind of stuff about this experiment that helps for doing science. Well, yeah.
You look at like 4 different cups and they all look the same, but then you add something to it and it changes it in a way that you wouldn't be able to see otherwise.
So yeah, there's definitely the experiment. And yeah.
Before we did the experiment, we tried to guess what would happen to the liquid that we had, so it made a hypothesis.
And the fact that it all looked the same was sort of one of the initial problems in the experiment. And also what I really like about this module is sort of the kind of the level of observation. If you're very good at observation, you may actually see what I wrote. The kind of it's a really big, it's a really important experiment for observation. Normally, if in a classroom setting, we would give the kids out some sheets of paper with some cups drawn on them, and then they kind of get to do what I did on the board. So follow the path that the dye takes, and sort of, you know, write their own notes and kind of ask their own questions. So, and that's important because, you know, you want them doing stuff, but you also kind of want them thinking and observing what's going on and thinking about what's going on. So I think there's some additional stuff we might want to talk about, just general classroom guidelines.
Just another thing, like when you go around the classroom, you might want to ask what their name is. So like when you get back in front of the classroom, if you remember, you can say, not like, hey, that kid in the red shirt, but like, name. Like, Bob.
And they'll remember your name too.
Yeah,
So
make sure you introduce yourself in the beginning.
Yeah.
And explain what you're doing, and every kid will remember your name the next time you go back.
yeah.
I guarantee that.
Well, I wanted to remind you guys that in your folders on, I'm not sure what page it is, but there's a Wonderworks teaching guidelines. So if you guys have any questions, you can refer to this page, and it just has little pointers and tips, most of the things we went over tonight. So.
Are there any questions now, especially new members?
I don't have a question, but like, I just want to like remind everyone that not all kids are angels. Like, we're going to have the really bad kids that are just trying to screw up the experiment just to like have fun and piss you off. So talk within your group about what you're gonna do with not only those kind of kids, but kids who are just really docile, kids who are really quiet, kids. How you're going to deal with a really dipole class where one's really like maybe it's just trying to kids are really hyper and the kids are really quiet. So just think about that. Not all kids are going to be like homogenous.
And
That's why the observational meeting is so important. Like, there's guidelines in there too about what you should look out for. Like, I think they talk about, like kids that are loud, kids that might have as more trouble learning than other kids, and so things to look out for. That's really important during your observational meeting, and those guidelines in there too.
And some teachers may even have like helpers, because I've been to a school where there were like upwards of 35 kids, and they had like 3 helpers on that group with us, and we would just direct the helpers, and they would help go around and keep order with all the groups. But that was pretty convenient. You'll find all that out at the observational visit.
So maybe one last thing we should mention is the classroom setting and the hospital setting are very different. So the kind of experiments you can do are probably going to be different. The way you present is going to be different, and the way that you have the kids do experiments is going to be different. And I don't know the people that are working in the hospital. Are there any people here? They're planning to do the children's hospital?
They had to go early.
Oh, okay. Well, then I guess I won't spend a lot of time talking about it. But maybe we should kind of get in touch with those people and talk to them more about what they can expect.
I'm going to accompany them to the hospital for the first visit. So.
Okay.
You can still talk about it. They can watch the webcast.
We're kind of low on time.
Okay.
So.
Oh, we are.
So no more questions? No. All right. So by next week, we would like everyone to have gone on their first observational visit. And for group 1, we'll email you the teacher's number.
So